A fist pounded down hard on the hood of a beat-up truck. The man behind it didn't flinch. A second man leaned in through the window, spit flying, and jabbed a finger at a dog curled up on the passenger seat. The dog just lifted its head, slow and calm. Then it growled low and both men went still. Nobody moved. The engine ticked in the heat. One of them looked down at the driver's patched jeans, his dusty hat, his cracked boots, and laughed. "Broke old fool," he said. He had no idea. That old man in the ruined truck owned more land than anyone in 3 counties. His name was Bo Callahan, and he'd been playing broke on purpose for 2 years. What made a hardened rancher hide everything he'd built? And why did it take a tired waitress to break him? Stay with me on this one. Now, to understand Bo Callahan, you have to understand what he'd lost. 12 years back, he buried his wife, Margaret, on a gray morning with the wind cutting sideways across the plains. She'd been the one who married him when the Callahan land was nothing but scrub and debt and a stubborn dream. She loved him when he was broke. And when she was gone, so was the only person who'd ever wanted the man and not the money. Because the money came. It came like a flood. Cattle prices climbed. Oil men came sniffing at the edges of his property, and inside of 10 years Bo Callahan owned the biggest spread anybody around Amarillo had ever seen. 40,000 acres. Cattle you couldn't count in a week of riding. A big white house on a hill that people slowed down to stare at from the road. And that was the problem. Everybody stared, everybody knew. When a man is that rich and that alone, folks start doing math. His younger sister, Della, ran a little dress shop in town, and Della had decided somewhere along the way that her big brother was going to die miserable if she didn't do something about it. So she started arranging dates. Blind ones. A widow from the church. A schoolteacher from Lubbock. A rancher's daughter with fine manners and a laugh she practiced in the mirror. And here's the thing. Every single one of them already knew who Bo Callahan was. He could see it in their eyes the second he walked in. That flicker, that quick little glance at his hands, his boots, his watch, doing the sums. He'd sit across the table and watch a woman light up like a Christmas window, and he'd feel sick because he knew that light wasn't for him. It was for the house on the hill. So one day, about 2 years before our story really gets going, Bo did something that made his sister want to strangle him. He decided to lie. Not a mean lie, not a cruel one. He just decided that from now on every blind date Della set up, he'd show up broke, dead broke. He dug his oldest jeans out of a rag pile, the ones with the knees patched twice over. He found a hat so beat and sweat-stained it looked like something a scarecrow would turn down. He drove his ranch hands rusted out, 46 Ford instead of anything nice. And he'd sit down across from these women and tell them, real quiet and sad, that the ranch had gone bust. Drought, bad loans, lost it all. He was just a hired hand now, sleeping in a bunkhouse, scraping by. Then he'd watch. Believe me, he watched close. And every time it was the same. The smile would freeze. The eyes would go flat. Some of them made an excuse and left before the coffee even came. One woman actually said out loud, "Well, this is a waste of a good dress." Another patted his hand like he was a sick dog and said her mama was expecting her. Bo would sit there alone in the diner or the cafe, order himself a plate of eggs, and feel that cold, mean satisfaction of a man who's just proven exactly what he already believed. People are greedy. Love is a story women tell for money. He'd known it since Margaret died, and every casserole-carrying widow in the county came calling within a month. His only real company through all of this was Dusty. Dusty was an old blue heeler, gray around the muzzle, one milky eye, and the loyalty of a dog who decided a long time ago that Bo Callahan was the whole world. Dusty rode shotgun in that rusted truck on every fake broke date, part of the disguise, but really just because Bo couldn't stand to leave him. The dog didn't care about the house on the hill. Never had. Della begged him to stop. "You're gonna run out of women," she said one afternoon, hands on her hips. And worse, Bo, you're gonna run out of years. You keep testing folks like this. One day the test is all you'll have left. He told her he'd take one more, just one. There was a widow from over near Canyon that Della swore was different. Bo agreed to meet her at a supper club Friday night. Same old plan, patched jeans, beat hat, the busted truck with Dusty riding along. He had no idea that Friday night was going to blow his whole life apart, not because of the widow, because of a wrong turn, a rainstorm, and a slice of pie he never asked for. Friday came, and it came with weather. Bo drove out toward Canyon with the sky going purple and mean over the plains, Dusty snoring against his leg. The widow was waiting at the supper club, pretty enough, done up nice. He gave her the story. Ranch gone bust. Bunkhouse, scraping by. And he watched her face do the thing they all did, the freeze, the cooling. She made it 15 minutes before she remembered a headache, gathered her purse, and was gone in a swirl of perfume and pity. Bo sat there a minute. Then he laughed, low and bitter, tossed some coins on the table, and walked out into the rain. By the time he hit the highway, it was coming down in sheets. The wipers on that old Ford could barely keep up, slapping back and forth, useless. He missed his turn. Missed it clean, and found himself out on some farm road he didn't know. The truck coughing, the gas gauge dropping toward empty, and the rain hammering the roof like it had a grudge. Dusty sat up, ears twitching, and let out a low whine. "I know, boy," Bo muttered. "I know." That's when he saw the light. A little glowing sign up ahead through the downpour, buzzing and flickering. A roadside diner, small and square, the kind of place that's half cafe and half prayer. The sign said Bishop's. He pulled in on fumes, cut the engine, and just sat there a second in the drumming rain, tired down to his bones. Then he pulled his beat hat low, told Dusty to wait, and ran for the door. A bell jingled over his head. The place was near empty. A couple truckers in a corner booth. A long counter with cracked stools. And behind that counter, wiping it down slow, was a woman. She looked up when he came in dripping, and here's the thing. She didn't do the math. She looked at his soaked patched jeans and his ruined hat and his tired face, and her eyes didn't go flat. They went soft, warm. She grabbed a towel off a rack and came around the counter and handed it to him before he'd said a single word. "Lord, you're soaked through," she said. "Sit down before you fall down, coffee's fresh." Bo sat. He was too worn out to do anything else. He pulled off the wet hat and set it on the stool beside him, and the woman poured him a cup of coffee, black and steaming, and slid it across without asking what he wanted. Her name tag said Nora. She had tired eyes and a smile that had been through some things, and flour on her sleeve, and she moved like her feet hurt, because they did. "Rough night to be driving," she said. "Rough night all around," Bo said. He drank the coffee. It was good and hot, and it warmed him from the inside. He'd only meant to wait out the worst of the rain, maybe fill his belly, get gas at first light. But he was starving, so he ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a bowl of chili, because that's what a broke man does. Nora brought it. And then, without a word, she set down something else next to it, a thick slice of pecan pie. "I didn't order that," Bo said. "I know," Nora said. She was already turning back to the counter. "It's on me." Bo looked at the pie. Then at her. "Ma'am, you don't have to do that. I can't even." "I didn't ask if you could pay for it," she said, and she looked right at him, steady. "Nobody should have to eat supper alone with an empty spot on their plate. Not on a night like this. Broke or not, it don't matter to me one bit. Everybody deserves something sweet." And Bo Callahan, cattle baron, owner of 40,000 acres, sat on a cracked stool in a rundown diner and could not think of one single thing to say. Now here's what got him. It wasn't the pie. It was that she meant it. There was no angle. She thought he was a busted-out ranch hand with holes in his jeans and dirt under his nails, a man who couldn't do a thing for her, and she gave him the pie anyway. She gave it because he looked hungry and alone and it was raining. That was all. A little bell dinged from the back and a boy came out. Maybe 8 years old, skinny, a cowlick sticking straight up, carrying a school book too big for him. "Mama, I finished my numbers," he said, and Nora's whole face changed, lit up in a way Bo hadn't seen a face light up in years. Not for money, for that boy. "That's my Sam," she said to Bo, proud. "Smartest kid in Potter County. He's gonna be somebody one day." Sam eyed the stranger. "Is that your dog out in the truck, mister? He looks lonesome." Bo blinked. "You want to bring him in? He's friendly." The boy tore out into the rain and came back a minute later soaked and grinning, old Dusty trotting at his heels, tail going like a metronome. And that old dog, who barely tolerated most people, walked straight up to that boy and leaned his whole weight against his legs like they'd known each other for years. Bo stayed 2 hours. He didn't mean to. He and Nora just talked easy over the counter while Sam sat on the floor with his arm around Dusty. She told him she'd been running the diner since her husband died in a wreck 4 years back. Told him money was tight. She never once complained. She just kept saying how lucky she was to have Sam. When the rain finally let up, Bo stood, and he tried to pay for it all, dug in his pocket for the little bit of cash a broke man carries. Nora waved it off. "Coffee's on the house for a man who listens good," she said. "Come back through sometime." He walked out into the clearing night. He got in the truck, and Bo Callahan just sat there in the dark parking lot, both hands on the wheel, staring at that buzzing sign. Dusty put his head on his knee, and for the first time in 12 years, something in that man's chest cracked open, quiet and warm, and he thought, real simple and clear maybe. Just maybe. He drove home under a sky washing clean of clouds, and he slept better than he had in a decade. And that right there is where he made his mistake, because he thought it was over. He thought he'd found something clean and simple. He hadn't. The whole thing was about to turn. Bo came back 3 days later. Told himself he just wanted more pie. He wore the same patched jeans, drove the same busted truck, brought the same old dog. He didn't have the heart to tell her the truth yet. He liked being just a ranch hand in her eyes. He liked being wanted for nothing. He came back the next week too, and the week after. Sam started saving him a stool. Dusty started sleeping under the counter like he owned it. And Bo, who'd built a fortress around his heart, felt the walls coming down one slice of pie at a time. But on his 5th visit, he pulled into the lot and knew right away something was wrong. There was a black county car parked out front. And through the window he could see a man in a gray suit standing at the counter, talking hard, jabbing a paper at Nora, and Nora had gone pale and small in a way he'd never seen. Bo got out slow. He came through the door quiet, hat low, and stood back by the pie case, and he listened. "The bank's called the note, Mrs. Bishop," the gray suit man was saying. "There's back taxes on top of it. You're 4 months behind. I'm sorry, but the county's got no choice. This building goes to auction the 1st of next month. You've got till then to clear the debt or clear out." "I've got a boy," Nora said, and her voice shook. "This diner's all we've got. Please, I'll catch up. Give me till spring." "It's out of my hands," the man said. He set a card on the counter and walked out past Bo without a glance, sizing up his patched jeans and dismissing him in the same breath. The bell jingled, and then it was quiet. Nora stood behind the counter with both hands flat on it, holding herself up. Sam was in the back. She hadn't seen Bo yet, and Bo watched her shoulders start to shake, watched this proud woman who'd never once complained finally break, silent, tears dropping onto the counter she'd wiped 10,000 times. Now understand something. In that 1 minute, this whole story changed. It stopped being about a rich man's little game. Bo's game had always been about pride, about proving people wrong, about protecting himself. Cheap and safe. This was something else entirely. This was a woman and a boy about to lose everything, the roof and the floor and the future all at once, to the bank and the county and forces that don't feel a thing. And the broke ranch hand she thought she'd been feeding pie to. He couldn't do a single thing to help, not as that man. Bo could have fixed it in a heartbeat. He could have written a check right there that wouldn't have dented his account. But he couldn't. Because the second he did, he'd stop being the broke man she'd loved for nothing. He'd become exactly what he'd spent 2 years running from, and she'd never know if he'd wanted her or bought her. He stepped forward. Nora. She wiped her face fast, pasted on the smile. "Oh, didn't hear you come in." "Sit down, I'll get the coffee." "I heard all of it," he said gently. "The bank, the taxes." Her smile fell. She looked away, ashamed. "It's nothing, I'll figure it, I always do." "How much?" She laughed, tired and broken. "More than a bunkhouse hand's got, sugar. More than I've got, don't you worry about it." She reached over and squeezed his rough hand. "You've got your own troubles. Lord knows a busted ranch is no easy road either. We're two of a kind, you and me. That's why I like you." And that squeeze of her hand near finished him. Two of a kind. She thought they were both broke, both scraping, both counting pennies, and it made her like him more, not less. She'd have gone down with the ship smiling at him. Bo drove home that night and did not sleep. He sat up in that big white house, all its rooms dark and empty, and he stared out at land he couldn't ride across in a day. And he thought about a woman who was about to lose one little building and would rather comfort him than take a dime she thought he couldn't spare. If you've ever known somebody like that, somebody who gives when they've got nothing left to give, you already understand what Bo was feeling. If this story's got its hooks in you the way Nora's kindness got its hooks in Bo, do me a favor right now and hit that subscribe button, because the part that comes next is the part I've been dying to tell you. By morning, Bo had a plan. And it was, in classic Bo Callahan fashion, exactly the wrong one. He decided he'd fix it in secret. He'd pay the whole debt off quiet, through the bank, anonymous, and let her think it was some mix-up, some miracle, some kind soul. She'd never know it was him. She'd keep her diner, keep her pride, and go on thinking he was just a broke ranch hand who liked her pie. He drove into Amarillo that very morning, walked into the bank in his good boots and his real hat for the first time in 2 years, and the manager near fell over himself. "Mr. Callahan, what an honor, sir." Bo paid off the note on Bishop's diner, every cent. The back taxes, too. He put it all in his own name, quiet as he could, and told the manager to keep his name out of it. But small towns don't keep secrets. They can't. Bo should have known that. 3 days later he came back to the diner, patched jeans, busted truck, dusty riding along, ready to slip back into being the broke man who couldn't help. He walked in with a grin, expecting relief, expecting Sam's stool. The diner was dead silent. Nora stood behind the counter, and she was holding a piece of paper. Her face wasn't warm. It wasn't soft. It was white and hard, and her eyes were red, and when she looked at him, something in them had gone cold as a January morning. "The bank called me this afternoon," she said, very quiet, "to let me know my debt was settled in full by a Mr. Bo Callahan of the Callahan Ranch." She set the paper down slow. "The Callahan Ranch, 40,000 acres, the biggest spread in the Panhandle." Her voice cracked. "Funny, I heard that ranch went bust. I heard the owner was sleeping in a bunkhouse." Bo's stomach dropped straight through the floor. "Nora, let me explain." "You're him," she said, not a question. "You're not a ranch hand, you never lost a thing. You've got more money than God, and you sat there. You sat on that stool and let me give you free pie. You let my boy feel sorry for your dog. You let me tell you I was broke, and you looked me in the eye and told me your ranch went bust." Her hands were shaking now. Why would a man do that? What kind of a game? "It wasn't a game," Bo said, stepping forward, hat in his hands. "I mean it was, but not with you. Nora, please. Every woman I ever met wanted the money. every one. They'd light up when they heard my name, and it made me sick, so I started lying. I'd show up broke to see who was real. It was a test, a stupid, mean test. And then I walked in here half drowned, and you gave me pie before I said a word, and you didn't know a thing about me. And for the first time in 12 years, somebody just wanted me around for nothing. I couldn't give that up. I didn't know how to tell you without losing it. So you lied, she said. For weeks, you watched me cry about losing everything, and you kept lying. I was trying to help you without letting me know, she snapped, and now the tears came hot. You paid it off in secret so I'd still think you were poor, so you could keep your little test running. You know what that is, Bo. You didn't pay off my diner. You bought yourself the right to keep lying to me. And that hit him like a fist, because it was true. You want to know the worst part? Nora came around the counter, and she wasn't backing down. She was right up in his face. This small, tired woman staring up at the biggest man in 3 counties without an ounce of fear. I fell for the broke man. I did. I sat awake thinking, here's somebody who understands. Somebody who's got nothing and gives anyway. Somebody like me. I felt safe with you because I thought we were the same. And you were up on your hill the whole time, laughing at how the poor waitress fell for it. I never laughed, Bo said, and his own voice broke now. Not once. Nora, I have not felt like laughing in 12 years until you and that boy and that pie. I swear it on Margaret's grave. Who's Margaret? My wife, she's dead. She loved me when I had nothing, and when she died I decided nobody else ever would. Then you did. You loved a man with nothing. He took a shaking breath. I don't want your gratitude. I don't want you thanking me for the money. That's why I hid it. I've had a lifetime of people wanting the money. What I wanted was for somebody to want me. And you did. And I was too much of a coward to trust it. The diner was dead quiet. Sam had come to the kitchen door and stood watching, wide-eyed. Dusty sat between them, looking up, whining low. Nora stared at Bo a long, long moment, and here's where she blindsided him. He'd braced for her to soften, to fall into his arms, grateful, the rich man's fantasy come true, or to throw him out for good. He got neither. She reached under the counter, pulled out a coffee can heavy with coins and crumpled bills, her whole life's savings, and she slammed it down on the counter between them. Take it, she said. Every cent I've got. It's not near what you paid, but I'll pay you back the rest if it takes me 20 years, and I will not owe you a thing. You hear me, Bo Callahan. I don't want to be a woman you rescued. I don't want to be the poor waitress the rich man saved. I've spent 4 years standing on my own 2 feet, and I am not about to trade that for a soft life bought with a lie. Her chin came up. If you want me, you'll take that money and let me pay my own debt like a person. Not a charity case, not a test, a person. And Bo Callahan, who had tested every woman he ever met to see if they wanted his money, stood there completely undone by a woman shoving her money at him to prove she didn't want his. That was the moment. That was the thing he'd been searching 2 years and 40,000 acres to find, and it had walked right up and slapped him across the face. He'd been testing everybody to find one honest heart. And here it was, so honest it wouldn't even take the help. He looked down at the coffee can. He looked at Sam in the doorway. He looked at Nora, fierce and proud and shaking. And slowly, Bo took off his beat-up hat and set it on the counter, and he did something he had not done in front of another living soul since the day they lowered Margaret into the ground. He let his eyes fill up, and he didn't hide it. I don't want the money, Nora, he said, thick. And I don't want you to owe me, so here's what I'll do. He slid the coffee can back across the counter to her. The diner's yours, free and clear, not a gift from a rich man. Call it back pay. Because you fed a lonely stranger for 5 weeks and asked nothing, and there is no amount of money that squares that. You're paid up. We're even. That's not even, she whispered. No, he said. It isn't, I still owe you, I'll owe you the rest of my life. He picked his hat back up and held it against his chest. I'm not gonna ask you for anything today. I lied to you and that's not fixed with a checkbook, I know that, but I'm gonna keep coming back. In these same jeans, in that same truck, with that same old dog, and I'm gonna order the cheapest thing on the menu and pay for it, and I'm gonna earn back the thing I threw away, if it takes 20 years. He almost smiled. I hear you're stubborn, well, so am I. Nora didn't answer, but she didn't tell him to leave either. Bo put his hat on. He nodded to Sam. He whistled soft for Dusty. And he walked out of that diner not knowing if he'd wrecked the one good thing he'd found or planted a seed in it. He drove home slow, and he waited. He came back the next day, ordered chili, paid for it, left a fair tip, no more. Nora served him without a word, but she served him. Sam showed him a drawing of Dusty. Bo pinned it to the visor of his truck like it was worth more than the ranch. He came back the day after that, and the one after. Weeks went by. He never once wore the good boots to that diner. He never once mentioned the ranch. He'd sit at the counter in his patched jeans and talk to Sam about arithmetic and cattle and how to whittle. And he'd talk to Nora about nothing at all, and slow, real slow, the ice went out of her. Because here's the thing about trust. You can't buy it back. You have to just show up, day after day, same man, and prove that the man is the same whether he's got 40,000 acres or 40 cents. That was the one test Bo had never thought to give himself, and he passed it the only way anybody ever does. One honest day at a time. Spring came. One evening, Nora closed up early. She took off her apron, sat down on the stool next to Bo's, and for a while neither of them said anything. Sam and Dusty were asleep together in the corner booth. "You still coming out here in that ratty truck?" she finally said. "Man like you." "Best truck I own," Bo said. "You could take me up to that big house on the hill, show me all that land." Bo shook his head slow. "That house has been empty a long time, it's just walls, this right here." He looked around the little diner, at the sleeping boy, at the old dog, at her. "This is the first place that's felt like home since Margaret. I don't want to take you up the hill, Nora. I want to bring the hill down here. If you'll have me. Broke or rich, I'm the same tired man who couldn't think of what to say when you handed me that pie." Nora was quiet a long moment. Then she reached over and took his rough hand in hers, the way she had that first rainy night, and she squeezed it. Not a poor woman comforting a poor man, just two people who'd finally stopped testing each other. "You know," she said, and there was the ghost of a smile now, "I never did charge you for that first slice of pie." "No, you didn't. Reckon you can pay me back the same way you're paying off everything else." She leaned her head against his shoulder, "one day at a time." They were married that fall, out on the plains under a clean sky, and Bo wore his good boots for once, and Nora wore a dress from Della's shop, and Della cried so hard she couldn't finish the toast. Sam stood up beside Bo as best man, all of 9 years old, cowlick slicked down, holding the ring, and Dusty, gray in the muzzle and slow in the hips, lay in the grass at their feet through the whole thing like he'd known all along how it would end. Bo kept the diner open, wouldn't hear of closing it. Nora didn't need the money anymore, but she said a place where a soaked stranger could get warm and a hungry man could get pie on a rotten night. Well, the world needed more of those, not fewer. So Bishop stayed lit up out on that farm road, and every now and then some down-on-his-luck traveler would stumble in out of the dark, broke and beat and alone, and Nora would set a slice of pie in front of him and say nobody should eat supper alone. And that old cattle baron, the richest man in 3 counties, would sit at the counter beside her in his patched jeans, and he'd understand finally all the way down that the only thing worth having was the one thing money couldn't buy and a test could never find. It had to be given, free, on a rainy night, to a stranger who couldn't pay you back, the same way it started, a truck in the dark, an old dog, a hungry man, only this time he wasn't pretending to be broke. And he wasn't alone.